Welcome to Hebraic Insights in the Gospels. Join us every Sabbath on Tsiyon Road Radio for a look at the life, deeds, and words of Yeshua Messiah and his followers from the Torah-centric Hebraic perspective they were originally lived and written in.
Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you'll find rest for your souls. You'll find rest for your souls. Oh, you'll find rest for your souls when you walk in his way.
Today's program is on Matthew chapter 20, verse 17 through verse 34. What is the path to greatness in the kingdom of God? Did the 12 apostles serve Yeshua because they were great, or did they become great because they served? How does one learn the secrets of service? Who is our service ultimately to? Who decides what our service should be? Why should we serve? Is servitude to and suffering for Messiah a joyless thing? What are the benefits and blessings of our service? Is there anything like it for a believer's walk? Finally, what was the example Messiah set for us that answers all these questions? Stay tuned through to the end of this program for Eliyahu ben David's insight on these questions and more in Matthew chapter 20, verse 17 through verse 34. And now, here's today's scripture portion. Matthew chapter 20, verse 17 through verse 34. As Yeshua was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside, and on the way he said to them, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and will hand him over to the Gentiles to mock, to scourge, and to crucify, and the third day he will be raised up." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him with her sons, kneeling and asking a certain thing of him. He said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Command that these my 2 sons may sit, one on your right hand and one on your left hand, in your kingdom." But Yeshua answered, "You don't know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink, and be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will indeed drink my cup, and be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it is for whom it has been prepared by my Father." When the 10 heard it, they were indignant with the 2 brothers. But Yeshua summoned them and said, "You know that the rulers of the nations are masters over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you shall be your servant. Whoever desires to be first among you shall be your bondservant. Even as the Son of Man came, not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." As they went out from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. Behold, 2 blind men sitting by the road, when they heard that Yeshua was passing by, cried out, "Lord, have mercy on us, you Son of David." The multitude rebuked them, telling them that they should be quiet, but they cried out even more, "Lord, have mercy on us, you Son of David." Yeshua stood still and called them and asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" They told him, "Lord, that our eyes may be opened." Yeshua, being moved with compassion, touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received their sight, and they followed him. And now, Here's some insight from Eliyahu ben David on those verses.
Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you find rest for your souls. You find rest for your souls. Oh, you find rest for your souls when you walk in His ways.
Good evening, friends. We're looking at the theme of the secret of service. Messiah has a lot to teach us about service, and we find some of that here in Matthew chapter 20, 17 through 34. And as I was listening to those verses, I was wondering how many of us would go up to Jerusalem or anywhere if we knew that when we got there, this is what they were going to do to us. And doesn't this show us the tremendous faith and courage of YESHUA Messiah, who is determined to walk out the will of his Father, even though he knew it would mean his death and a lot of unpleasant things accompanying that. This is one of the things that makes me respect him so much. When things are relatively easy, you don't think that's ever going to change. You kind of feel like that's just how it is, but these are the last days, and this is going to change, even in countries like the United States. And we're seeing the attitude towards believers changing already. So if you just think of this as kind of a certain road, a continuum, where does it end up? I think it's pretty obvious. It will end up in real persecution, and we do need to be prepared for that. And this is why hearing the truth, the real message of YESHUA Messiah, the hard things as well as the easy things, is really so much better than just having everything soft-pedaled to us. Because if we have that happen, and we're just told, for example, Messiah is just going to whisk us out of here before any bad things can happen, what would happen to us when that doesn't happen and the persecution comes?
Don't go away. Hebraic Insights in the Gospels will be right back after this. Enjoying this episode of Hebraic Insights in the Gospels? Want to hear more teachings from Eliyahu ben David? Tune in to our 24/7 internet radio station, Tsiyon Road Messianic Radio. You can catch the latest episodes of Hebraic Insights in the Gospels before they're released as a podcast, learn more about what Zion Ministry teaches from our other programs, and listen to a host of uplifting songs from our independent Messianic music artists. To tune in to our station, go to Zion.org. That's TSIYON.org. Or search for Tsiyon Road Messianic Radio. Again, that's Zion, spelled TSIYON, in your favorite internet radio app or station directory. Don't miss the latest episodes. Go to TSIYON.org and check the station schedule to see what's playing.
Well, we're talking here about the secret of service. And certainly YESHUA knew the secret of service. And he was telling us about it. And it's not a message that is an attractive message to the world. When he said what service is about is basically doing what he did, which was to give his life for everybody else, well, that's not what most people want to do. And that's not an attractive idea. But, he had some other things to say about service, too. So I'd like to bring some of those things into it to reveal the secret of service. And I think you'll find some of these things, perhaps your experience. One thing that we're very aware of here at Zion headquarters is that service nourishes your spirit. And you know, YESHUA said, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work." Now, he doesn't use the word servant here, but isn't he talking about what a servant does? Doing the will of the Father, accomplishing his work. For Messiah, this was like food. And what is food? Food is what nourishes you. It's like fuel. And this is an amazing truth, amazing secret about service. That when we give our life to serve YESHUA, we receive this nourishment for our spirit. So when you see people who are giving their life to serve YESHUA, you can see that in them. You can see that they're growing. They're being nourished. It's a very important part of maturing as a believer. There's nothing like service to help you mature as a believer, because service nourishes your spirit and makes you grow. That's a tremendous secret to know, isn't it? And a really good reason to be a servant. Well, here's another thing. Now, this is a real secret. And you don't really learn this just from reading the words. You kind of learn it from doing it. And this gets you hooked, really. It's the flowback effect. Luke 6:38 describes it this way. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be given to you. For with the same measure you measure, it will be measured back to you. So what is Messiah really saying? He's saying, well, whatever you give, it's going to be given back to you, but not just the same, okay? But in good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. So he's telling you, when you give, which is what you're doing when you serve, you're going to get back more than what you give. And he's not necessarily talking about material things, but it could include that. But in the aggregate, all that you get from him is so much more. And we're not talking here. This isn't talking about the promise to come. This isn't talking about all of that. That's the kingdom ahead of us. It's talking about right now in this life. Those who choose to serve YESHUA Messiah and give of themselves receive so much more back. And part of this is because of this flow through that happens. You know, when you are giving in YESHUA Messiah, there's this flow of his spirit that comes through you and empowers you. And while that spirit is flowing through you, guess who's benefiting? Not just the people you're serving, but you yourself are being constantly renewed and built up by the Spirit. So there's nothing like service. You know, you see a lot of people, they're really into the praise and the singing and the dancing and all of that because it makes them feel good. And there is a place for that, and that's important. But scripturally speaking, service is the real worship. Service is the real worship. This is where we receive that flow of the Spirit in a really substantial way that benefits others and demonstrates who YESHUA Messiah really is. So it's such a special thing, and it's such a blessing for those who do it. And as we learn tonight, service is the path to greatness in the kingdom. You notice Messiah didn't say to his disciples, don't be great. Do you know why he didn't say that? God created men to be great. Adam was great, wasn't he? He was given authority over the whole world. Didn't God create Adam and Eve to be great? And what about the patriarchs? Didn't God make them great? He wanted that. And what about Israel? The great leaders of Israel. Didn't God make them great for a reason? So there is a place for greatness in the kingdom because it reflects the greatness of our Father and the greatness of Messiah. But what we learn is that the path to greatness is so different from the world because in the kingdom, all the great ones aren't sitting on top of the pyramid. They are the foundation of the pyramid that everything else is built on. They are the examples of service. Whoever desires to become great among you shall be your servant. That's the path to greatness that Messiah set out. That is so different in every way from the world, and it shows us his servant's heart. This is what he rewards. Well, we have some other thoughts here. We have this example of Messiah who says he came to serve, and we know he gave it all. He gave everything he had. And he put this forward as an example of service, saying the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, that was an amazingly selfless thing to do, especially when you realize what happened with him. The Son of God who came down from heaven to be one of us, which already is quite a drop, I'm sure you'd agree. And then even went so far as to be a ransom to give his life for us on the cross. This is an amazing thing, an amazing example of true servanthood, and it challenges everyone who would want to be a servant. It really sets the pace for every person that would want to be a servant. But it truly is a challenge. But look at how Messiah did that, because this kind of points the path for us. The reward for his service was the goal that urged him on. So, yes, he was selfless and he was doing what we needed because we needed it. But the thing that helped him through that, according to Hebrews chapter 12, it says, "Let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking to YESHUA, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising its shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim." Remember, you can never outgive God. Messiah gave more than anybody. I'm sure we all agree. And so, would that not put him in the position to get more than anybody, according to the principles of the kingdom we already looked at? And see, he understood those principles. He's the one that told us. He understood those principles. So even though he knew and he told them what was going to happen to him, he went to Jerusalem knowing what they were going to do. And he was determined he was going to go through with it. Well, what was he thinking? What gave him a positive state of mind in that situation? It was because, it says here, of the joy that was set before him. The joy that he knew that once again he would be seated with his Father, that he would have his place, on the throne next to his Father in heaven. And seeing that as the object of his faith helped him to be able to press forward and to complete his task, in his case, perfectly. And in doing so, providing a perfect example for us of service, but also what can motivate our service. And that is that certain knowledge of the reward that is waiting for us on that day. We have some verses about this that remind us that the sufferings of his servants will likewise bring glory and joy. You know, we learned about the cup. And the first application about the cup and all of these things we're looking at here tonight was definitely to the apostles. But by extension, all of these things apply to every believer because these principles are universal. And there is a cup that we too must partake of. And if you are going to apply one word to that cup that Messiah was talking about, it would be the word sufferings. A sharing in his sufferings. It's a cup. As a matter of fact, when we partake on Passover of the Lord's Supper and we pass the cup, we are partaking in the death of Yeshua Messiah. We are partaking of that cup. We are called to suffer for the sake of Messiah, with Messiah. And this is adequately shown for us in the Scriptures. For instance, Romans 8:18 says this, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which will be revealed toward us." You see, that same equation that worked for Yeshua Messiah of suffering and then receiving the joy of entering into glory, that's offered to us too, because that's part of our walk as servants, to enter into the sufferings of Yeshua. Now, I'm not saying it's all suffering any more than it was for Yeshua. Yeshua had joy in his ministry. He lived a joyful life, even though he did have sufferings. Well, this is how it is as a servant of Yeshua Messiah. We have great joy in our lives, and certainly joy about the reward ahead, but much joy in this life that he pours out on us. But when we think about the sufferings that come to us as servants, these are very small compared to the greatness of what is waiting for us ahead. Peter said the same thing. He says, "Because you are partakers of Messiah's sufferings." Let's stop there a minute. How many Christian teachers are telling you that? That you are partakers of Messiah's sufferings? They seem to leave that out when they do the sinner's prayer. Have you noticed that? Well, that's part of the gospel. That's part of the gospel message, and Peter's including it here. Yes, we as disciples of Messiah are sharers, partakers in Messiah's sufferings. That applies to us. We carry forward the work of Messiah in the world, so we participate in his sufferings. But he says, because you are partakers of Messiah's sufferings, rejoice. You should be happy about it, that you suffer for his sake and for the sake of his people. Why? That at the revelation of his glory, you also may rejoice with exceeding joy. You see, servanthood has its secrets, and those who learn them are filled with joy, just like Yeshua Messiah was. We know that our service is not in vain. We have great things ahead coming to us really beyond imagination because of our service. And this certainly gives us a goal to stretch forward to. And at the same time, we are blessed through service in this life, at this time, because our spirit is nourished through service. And in so many ways, more comes back to us than we can ever give. These are some of the secrets of service.
Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is, and walk in it.
You have been listening to Hebraic Insights in the Gospels. Some of the scripture verses Eliyahu quoted in this program include John chapter 4, verse 34, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 through 3, and 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 13. Further teachings and study materials on various related topics and others can be found at our membership site, Zion Tabernacle. Sign up is free. Just go to zion.net. That's TSIYON.net. Or click the membership link on the Zion Road website. New programs on the Gospels will be airing every Sabbath on Tsiyon Road Radio. Join us next Shabbat to learn more in the book of Matthew. Shabbat Shalom!